Good morning. My name is Jim Gilmartin, and it's my privilege on behalf of the ECCL leadership team to welcome you to the 199th meeting of the ECCL. Thanks for joining us. We really do appreciate your time and interest. We'll be accepting questions during this meeting, and at the end of each speaker's comments, I'll ask for questions, and you may ask the speaker any question you like. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible during the meeting. However, we may have to limit the questions being sensitive to time. Finally, as we've said in the past, when we run these Zoom meetings, we record them. And you'll be notified when it's available on the ECCL website, esterotoday.com, and you should be able to see the meeting in total. So on that note, I'm going to turn this over to Mark Nowicki to make a comment. Mark?
Thanks, Jim. Let's all take a moment of silence and reflect on those affected by the current pandemic. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I'd like to really go into something that's really a pleasure for me. I'd like to talk about the ECCL's Volunteer of the Year. And it's my sincere pleasure to announce the ECCL Board of Directors has named Amy Kuchenbecker 2020 Volunteer of the Year for her work facilitating the Junior Achievement Program 258 Graduate, a collaborative effort of the ECCL, the Village of Estero, and Junior Achievement of Southwest Florida. The program teaches JA financial lessons to kids from second, and I mean that, second through 12th grade. Children learn how to use credit cards, write a check, get health insurance, apply for a job, avoid bankruptcy, which is often veiled in the mysteries of adult world. For the 2 school years, the program has been very active. An astounding 2,662 students have participated in the ECCL volunteer-led JA classes, consisting of 1/3 of all Estero area students. Really amazing. In addition to being a chief program administrator, Amy serves as 8th grade section leader in charge of recruitment and organizing class sessions with volunteers. Amy has also been instrumental in leading curriculum updates, increased student engagement, and she is tirelessly managing communications to volunteers and the schools. Angie Gillette, Amy's teaching partner, adds, Amy does a great job of working stories into her lessons that are relatable to the kids, including examples from her own life and current events that kids are aware of. Mike Wasson, a 2nd grade section leader, calls Amy the communications glue that makes our entire volunteer base work. And finally, Jeremy Jasper, chair of the ECCL's Education Council, added, Amy is a wonderful human being who understands the importance of providing real-world practical skills to our area students. She is our den mother, our organizer, and the bright ball of energy that fuels all of us to be our best. Congratulations, Amy. And for more details on Amy, pick up Estero Life magazine. It's a great article in there. And from a personal note, Amy, it's been my pleasure to teach with you 2nd graders. We know what that's like. It's great to get a hug when you're standing in front of a group of 2nd graders. Really amazing. So now I'd like to introduce the panelists that are with us today. To begin with, we have Dr. Anna Puszkin-Chevlin, Regional Director of Growing Climate Solutions, Path to Positive, and Jodi Walborn, Policy and Worksite Co-Lead of the Blue Zones Project, Southwest Florida. Also smiling at you from their homes and locations is Gary Bilian, our newly appointed Community Economic Development Council Chairperson, Mark Nowicki, our Chief Operating Officer, Barry Friedman, our Chief Membership Development Officer, and Alan Bowditch, our Chief Communications Officer. So on that, let me introduce Dr. Chevlin. Dr. Chevlin is the first Regional Director of Growing Climate Solutions, Path to Positive. She's a champion for sustainable policies with extensive experience helping communities become climate resilient. As Regional Director, Dr. Chevlin oversees the goals of empowering community members and leaders to initiate change, ensuring a prosperous and healthy community, and building climate literacy and resiliency. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Dr. Chevlin. The ECCL is a part of the Growing Climate Solutions Path to Positive group. So I'll turn it over to you, Doctor. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you and good morning, everyone. I really want to thank you for this opportunity because I'm really out there to meet people in our community, and this is an excellent opportunity to tell you a little bit about Growing Climate Solutions as we're rounding out our first year of operations and give you an overview of what we do and what we have planned for next year. And I have to tell you that when you're the person walking into a room, whether it's an audience or a virtual room, and you're the person speaking about climate change, you never know exactly what to expect. Is the audience there really eager to hear what you have to say, or are they just quietly, politely smiling at you? Do you have a couple of people that are very skeptical, or is there a room of inspired people who really want to see change? So being the climate speaker is always a bit of a gamble. And the best way to start a conversation like this is to bring everyone around the things that we really appreciate about South Florida. What brought you here? Was it that you wanted to be close to the water? Do you come from the Midwest and just want to escape those winters and come for the weather? Is it the quality of life, the nature? Are you a boater? Are you a golfer? And when we think about the things that brought us to Southwest Florida, the things we enjoy so much, we have to consider that climate change over the next 20 or 30 years may really put some of those quality of life factors at risk. And if we want to preserve the quality of life, both for us and for future generations, we have to get around understanding what the climate risks are and why they are happening, and what we can do actually to prevent the worst impacts, because preventing them takes planning, and planning takes time. So starting now, we really have to think about what we can do to mitigate climate impacts and what we're going to have to do in our built environment, in our social services, in our economy to prepare for the changes that are inevitably coming. So that's what Growing Climate Solutions, that's where we started. About 3 years ago, the Conservancy of Southwest Florida was doing a 5-year strategic plan. And they were acknowledging that all the environmental work they do would be, for naught if they didn't start addressing the climate issues that are affecting the natural and built environment. And that wasn't sufficiently incorporated in their plan. At the very same time, the Community Foundation of Collier County, through the Schultz Foundation, had done a community needs assessment for Collier County. And they too came up with the fact that all the services, all the social services and endeavors that they are funding and want to see happen will be threatened if climate change isn't squarely addressed and planned for in the future. And this was the nascent beginning of the partnership. These two organizations got together with the Southwest Florida Community Foundation, based in Fort Myers, and they talked to FGCU, our leading state university, about the work they were doing in climate. And out of this was born a partnership, an acknowledgement that the community from the grassroots up has to start educating the public, understanding what's at risk, and beginning to do the first steps to plan for adaptation and change. They also reached out to a group in Washington, DC called Ecoamerica. Ecoamerica is a national organization that focuses specifically on climate communications. They wanted to bring in a good model, and Ecoamerica had been working in LA and in Salt Lake City, areas that aren't typically accustomed to talking about climate. So they incorporated them as a consultant. And out of this was born Growing Climate Solutions, Path to Positive. And the name is really important because we want to acknowledge that the growing part is that it's a process that begins nascently and matures over time. And it also acknowledges the natural infrastructure. And the path to positive is also a critical part of the name. While we talk a lot about, and many climate people talk about the impending crisis, this really isn't a constructive dialogue. It's important to acknowledge what's at risk, but it's equally important to acknowledge what can be done. What are the solutions? Because when people hear bad news over and over again, they get numb. But when you turn the table and you say, you as an individual, you as a household, you as a community, a neighborhood, a city, a county, together as a community, we can make change and we can change that destiny. That's a much more positive way to engage people. So out of that came Growing Climate Solutions. Now, a little bit about me. I was working in Palm Beach County as the sustainability officer in Delray Beach for about 4 years. I came to this project because in my capacity as the sustainability officer, I had worked with communities in the East Coast of Florida to raise the awareness of climate challenges and climate solutions, both through education and through municipal public policy. So I come at it from both the private sector end, the educational piece, and the policy piece. And to me, the challenge was, while other parts of the state have been addressing climate for well over 10 years, in this corner of the state, there wasn't a lot going on. It was kind of sleepy. And yet we face the same risks here as we do in other parts of the state. So let's say in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, they had created a climate compact, a collaboration among municipal governments to get data, to apply for grants, to assess risks, to write policy together. Each of those cities had a sustainability officer. We were a network, and we worked together to really advance all kinds of projects and plans. You come to this coast, and none of that infrastructure had yet been built. So to me, this was a really important challenge because this part of the state is both affluent, educated, has tremendous assets, a lot of social capacity. And all we needed to do was ignite that kind of social entrepreneurship in our community here to really make strides and make them quickly. So I am super excited to be here in Southwest Florida, advancing this mission. So what is the mission? And Jim did a very nice description. Growing Climate Solutions has 5 primary goals. The first is to build education and awareness about climate change in our region, both among our leadership and among the lay audience, the stakeholders, the people who live here. So education is the first goal. We also stress, like the name says, growing climate solutions, that a lot of the solutions involve protecting the natural environment, the things we really love about this area, the water quality, the trees, the natural flora and fauna. That is an important piece of this equation. Thirdly, and almost most importantly, through education, we hope to empower community members and community leaders to take action to prepare for climate change, to both mitigate the greenhouse gases that are causing it and to adapt our buildings, our roads, our infrastructure to what we anticipate is going to happen in the next both 10, 15, and 20 years from now. So that empowerment, and when I say community leaders, we're talking both about elected officials as well as people just like you. ECCL is an organization of community leaders. You are influencers in your community, in your neighborhood, in your clubs, in your businesses, in your professions. So when I use the term community leaders, it's broadly speaking. Everyone has a role in this. Fourthly, we want to do this because our goal is to ensure prosperity and health. If we don't address climate change, these are going to fall back. Our quality of life is going to be diminished. And so when we engage our leadership and we get companies to do the right thing, we get cities to adopt policies that are in advance investment in infrastructure, we want to applaud them. We want to give them kudos in the news. We want to get that information out there because what we feel is that as the stakeholders, residents and businesses see that other businesses are doing things, they too are inspired to join the fray, to start moving the needle forward. So it's equally important to educate, to inspire, and to celebrate what is happening here. So how do we do this? How do we move this forward? The idea of Growing Climate Solutions is to create a network of partners that can champion climate awareness in our community and depoliticize this work. As I said in the beginning, climate change has been, for better or worse, and I think for worse, highly politicized topic, something that you don't talk about at the dinner table with people you just met. You talk about the weather. You don't want to bring up climate change because you just don't know where people are on this. But that time is over. And we have to not see this as a red topic or a blue topic, but as a scientific green topic. So when we engage community leaders like you, when we educate you about what's at stake and what can be done, and you can talk about it with others, we sort of take the edge off of this topic. We get real with it and we confront it. And so that's the first step, is to build champions in our community, people like yourselves. And to date, after a year, we have about 30 partners. This is a strategy, actually, which I have to tip my hat off to Blue Zones, because we looked at that model and they're a super effective organization. And I constantly, when I get stuck, kind of look at what they're doing, because they're an excellent example of how you can inspire people. The next thing I do, and I spend a lot of time doing this, is doing educational seminars to groups. Those groups can be professional groups like journalists, healthcare workers, neighborhood associations, and these are like 1 to 2 hour presentations. Some are presentations and some are trainings. And in these trainings, and this is where I have a extensive set of PowerPoints, which I'm not sharing with you today, we talk about first greenhouse gas emissions and what's driving climate change. Then I focus really on what are the impacts, and not what are the impacts on the North Pole or in other parts of the world. What are the impacts here in Southwest Florida? What can we anticipate in terms of sea level rise? Did you know that in the next 10 years, we may have 9 to 15 inches of sea level rise? We may have almost 2 feet of sea level rise by 2040, which is in about 20 years. We talk about hurricanes. We love to talk about hurricanes, not just on June 1st, but hurricanes are getting stronger. They're getting wetter. And with sea level rise and stronger hurricanes, we're going to have stronger storm surge, impacting more properties inland. We talk about the changes in precipitation. It's going to become wetter wets and drier dries. So when it rains, we're going to have a lot of flooding. Why do we have flooding? What are the infrastructure issues that cause that flooding? I discuss saltwater intrusion, something most people don't even know about, that there is a freshwater lens that will be encroached upon with sea level rise, and some of the wells that we rely on for our drinking supply may be compromised in the next 20 years. And most importantly, I talk about the heat. In fact, Southwest Florida is ranked among the most vulnerable metropolitan areas in the United States in terms of a growing heat index, where we used to have about 26 days of the year where it was 105 degrees or higher heat index. In the next 10 years, that number will rise to 135 days a year. Can you imagine Southwest Florida, where a third of the year is unbearably hot? How will that affect our economy or our season? We rely a lot on people coming down here for the nice weather and then sticking around, into May, in fact, or coming a little early in October, because the more they're down here and spending money, the more our economy grows. But if it's unbearably hot, will that season contract again and people stay here a shorter period of time? What does that do to tourism, to restaurants, to retail? And if that doesn't catch your attention, think about the health impacts. When we have heat, we have increased morbidity. People don't think about this, but there are studies now that even show when you have heat, you have higher incidences of dehydration, heat stroke. It impacts birth weights for pregnancies. It has a disproportionate impact on the elderly and on children. Outdoor workers, the people fixing your roofs, mowing your lawn. So making people understand what's at risk is really important. But then we turn these discussions on what can we do? And this discussion focuses on both mitigating the greenhouse gases, what can be done to reduce the amount of greenhouse gas, and what do we do when these impacts hit us? How can we prepare our built environment, our social services provision, our emergency responses? How can we make a more resilient society? And we break this discussion down into 2 parts. One, there's the we. What can our communities do? What can local government do? And we discuss transportation changes, land use changes, social service provision. And then there's the you. What can you as individual households do? in terms of conserving energy, conserving water resources, adopting clean energy practices, looking at your food purchases. And there's an overlap here also with blue zones. We both are on the same page about the kind of built environment that is both resilient and healthy. We're both on the same page about the kind of foods we should eat, both to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to be a healthier human being. So there's a lot of overlap here about the small changes that our community is going to have to make to be resilient in the future. And how do we use this? Well, I use my partners, people like ECCL, to deliver these presentations to different organizations. And I'm here at your disposal. If you know of a group who would be interested, I'm more than glad to set up a meeting and come out and speak to you. And then we use our partner network to talk to our leadership. If you know city council people, if there is an issue that's coming up that's of public policy, we ask you for support. And ECCL was the first group when I asked for a response to the to support the growing Southwest Florida Regional Resilience Compact. You guys stepped up first, and I was really, really proud of you. We needed the government of Estero to support this, and you guys stepped up. You read my newsletter, you understood the issue and how important it was. You wrote a letter of support, and that's what starts to tip the needle and make things change. So I'm super excited to work with you, and I hope we can continue doing this in the future. Now, I can tell you that COVID has been a challenge for us. When we first created this organization, we hoped to create committees in different sectors so that the business sector would work together, the faith sector would work together. We haven't been able to organize that. People are overwhelmed with Zoom. Many of our businesses have just been trying to survive. They can't take on more involvement in the community. They're just trying to make payroll. But as we come out of COVID, we hope to restart some of that. In the meantime, my main outreach has been these kind of Zoom presentations. We also have a very robust website with lots of information. I post a blog. A newsletter goes out every other month. So I hope that all of you on the call, if you're interested in sticking your toe into the climate issue, go to growingclimatesolutions.org. Check out the website, learn more about us, see who the partners are, start reading some of the blogs, and sign up for the newsletter. If you don't want to do that, you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter. We want you to engage in social media. It's a great outreach tool. So let's say one of you finds something really interesting about what I write, repost it because your friends will read it and they may now start engaging in this issue where they would have thought, that's for somebody else. So each of you are also an ambassador for me. We've also been working with some specific partners. One of the ones I'm most excited about is the Girl Scouts of Gulf Coast, Florida. We've been working on developing curriculum to teach Girl Scouts about climate change. That's empowering the next generation. And I've actually submitted that project for a national award. I don't know where that stands, but this is part of taking our partners, doing the right thing, and then celebrating them, letting people know how other organizations are moving forward. And for the coming year, we have some really exciting things going on. First, I will continue to do these climate education presentations. I can tailor them to a group. I spoke to architects. I spoke about the built environment. I speak to faith groups. We talk about social justice issues. So if you have a group that you want me to address, I'm here as a resource for you. We are also working with FGCU and their efforts to form that Regional Resilience Compact. So we're supporting them in organizing the framework for that. We're going to do the climate education and outreach both for cities, their staff, and for the public. And we're helping being like on their support team as they form the organization. And lastly, and I'll leave you with this, we are debuting a climate lecture series called the Climate Compass Lectures. They'll start in February. We have 3 dynamic speakers lined up for February 24th, March 24th, and April 21st. The topics are going to be 1, bipartisan support for climate. We have a South Carolina former congressman coming to speak to us. The March one is on military security and climate, how a changing climate impacts our ocean security, how our military is preparing for climate issues. And the April one is about real estate. What's happening to the real estate market as waters are rising and encroaching on our shoreline? So if you find that interesting, sign up, you'll get some more information, and stay in touch with us. I hope that that was helpful.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chevlin. That was very insightful, and hopefully people are listening to you and will respond. To those of you participating at home, do you have any questions for Dr. Chevlin? Okay, we have one. It looked like for a second I saw Donna. I'm looking to see, but it's not showing here. Donna, if you have a question, try. Okay, well, just give me a second. I have to find you. There you are. Okay, Donna, you can speak if you unmute.
Have you met at all with the Lee County Board of County Commissioners yet?
Not yet. First of all, we were waiting for the elections to happen and see who was being engaged. In our collaboration with the Regional Resilience Compact, they are approaching the Lee County Board of Commissioners about joining that initiative. So we're indirectly in touch with them, but we haven't reached out to them directly. There has been some resistance in Lee County. They actually took a huge step backwards. They used to have a sustainability officer, one of the only ones in the region. There are none now. And several years back, they dissolved that department. They did a greenhouse gas inventory and then shelved it and did nothing with it. So there has been, some resistance in Lee County on approaching the issue of climate, but we think that a new day is dawning and that things are really changing. So we're excited about the future.
Thank you.
Okay, Donna, I'm going to mute you now. And I got a note. Oh yeah, it says, Dr. Chevlin, would you share your contact information with the audience?
Sure, let me think about the easiest way to do that right now, which would be, how about this? While my co-host speaks, I will find the slide with my email and my phone number. If you want to jot it down, or I can type it into the chat. It's easiest to reach me by phone or email. Phone is 239-776-1910. And my email is anna.p@growingclimatesolutions.org.
That's great. Thanks.
I'll type that into the chat so everybody can open up chat and see that.
All right, that's good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Doctor. Okay, next speaker is Jodi Walborn. Jodi is the Policy and Worksite co-leader of the Blue Zones project in Southwest Florida. She's an experienced community educator with a demonstrated history of working in the hospital and healthcare industry. She'll talk about the Blue Zones program in Southwest Florida. Jodi, you're on.
All right, thanks, Jim. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to actually ask people to type in their chat box right now if there's anybody who doesn't know what Blue Zones is already, because I don't want to waste your time kind of going over the whole program. Everybody already knows what it is? Awesome. Then I'm going to skip over a couple of slides because it really does kind of just go over what Blue Zones is and the background. Let's see here. All right, so what I really wanted to talk to you guys about is the built environment. I'm brand new to Blue Zones. I've been here for about 3 months, and my primary responsibility is helping shape the built environment. Now, Estero is already making leaps and bounds at improving their built environment, and that's green space. It is making the roads safer. It's different types of buildings and the land development code. It's not all about roundabouts and bike lanes, believe it or not. That is part of it, but like I said, I'm going to skip over the parts that we really don't need to talk about. But I want to talk to you guys a little bit about looking at the difference of designing for auto-centric versus people-centric. And if you look at the top picture in this, you've got these two women who are walking down the street, and you can see all kinds of driveways where cars are going to be going in and out of the parking lots. It's all signs. Would you feel safe walking down that street? Versus designing for people. You've got the cars going down the middle of the street. Then you've got a buffer line, both of parked cars and of trees. Then you've got a nice wide sidewalk that goes right into the businesses. This is kind of an overview if you were looking at an urban scape. On the left, it's designed for cars, and that's what takes up all of the space is cars. You've got parking lots, you've got roads, you've got driveways in and out, and you've only got a little strip mall and one business. Versus designing for people, you've got parking on street, you've got parking within the buildings, you've got multi-story buildings with a sidewalk that goes around the entire block. This focuses on people being able to get to these businesses. Think about it. Which environment would you rather spend more time in? Do you want to walk around an area where there's a lot of parking lot and there's no shade from trees, there's no buffer from traffic? Or would you rather spend time going from shop to shop in an area that has made it pedestrian friendly and safe for you to walk? And it's also about knowing when these practices are applicable. You're not going to put this out in the middle of on the end of Corkscrew, you know, where there is no development. It's a very rural area. So doing something like this out in that area, it's not appropriate. This is just an example of a complete streets project that was completed in Naples. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it is Central Avenue, and this is the cross street is 10th. You can see that there is transportation for the cars. There's safe transportations for bikes, for pedestrians. There's still adequate parking for the businesses. And it's actually now considered a high density area, which means that businesses are attracting more customers, they're making more money, and more money, of course, means more income taxes for the city. So it's a benefit for everybody. I know that a lot of people think of Blue Zones as a Collier County project. I want to let you know, I live in Lee County. I've lived here for 13 years, and I'm really, really excited about all of the changes that are coming up. And we want to make sure that we can get Estero Blue Zone certified. They did sign up to do this back in 2015. We had Dan Burden come down, and he did an evaluation of the village and said, hey, these are some great projects. And I know that they're already working on some. We want to make sure that we're here on board so that the village of Estero can get that that certification as Blue Zone certified, which also attracts more business and more customers to your area. I do have a slide. Here's my contact information. I am looking for members of the community who want to lend their voice. They want to give some input to shape the community. We are looking to rebuild the Built Environment Committee. And that's where I need your help. If you know of people who are interested in helping create green space, safe roads, I know they've already got a project in mind for a downtown Village of Estero type area. If you would like to be a part of that, we would love to have your voice. And that's really what I came here to talk to you about today. So if you have any questions, I am here.
Thank you very much, Jodi. There Are there any folks out there in the audience that have a question for Jodi? Anybody?
One.
Okay, Alan, why don't you do that, and I'll see if there's anyone else. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jodi, amazing talk, and I was very fascinated to hear what you had to say. Can you tell me at what point in time you become involved with a developer? Because of course, sometimes we hear of a particular project that might, you know, a developer might enjoy building a place in. And I don't know at what point you may be able to step in and provide guidance either to them or whether they ask you. Maybe you could explain where this happens in the process.
Absolutely. What we do is we work with the Village of Estero to create policies within their land development code, within the comprehensive plan that says, okay, we've got a builder coming in, we've got a developer coming in, and they want to make this huge grand project. But we want to make sure that when they're making this project, that they follow a certain checklist, saying, you know, whatever the Village of Estero's priorities are. Do they want to make sure that they're mandating a 12-foot wide multi-use path throughout the entire development? Are they going to have bike lanes and sidewalks? What is appropriate where? And what does the Village of Estero want, so that they have a continuity? And we want to make sure that we have sidewalks. A lot of places will put in a sidewalk just in front of their development along the main road, but then the sidewalks stop at the edge of those developments. So we would like to make sure that there's a policy in place that says, hey, we want to make sure that there's a continuity plan in place here. We want, if you have your sidewalk here, we need to make sure it connects to the next one, and that it's not going to be one is 4 foot wide and one is 10 foot wide. We need to have those plans in place ahead of time.
Okay, thanks very much. Donna Sutton, if you can hear me, I'm not sure whether you had another question or not, but if so, speak up. If not, we'll know you didn't have any.
No, I didn't, but I will ask one now that I have.
Okay. I opened the door. I opened the door, Donna. Go ahead.
I got lots of questions all the time. Have you worked with the Village of Estero when they revised their land development code to incorporate some of those things, or was that done too early before your collaboration with them?
I personally started 3 months ago. My predecessor, Jessica Crane, left in, I want to say, February. So there has not been a lot of input, and I am trying to get that in now. I know they've got some additional hearings coming up. I'm trying to review the land development code as proposed by the village to see if it meets complete streets criteria, if there's a waterway protection ordinance, if there's a treescape protection ordinance. I'm trying to research all of that so we can lend some input. But I am one person and I don't live or work directly in Estero. That's why I'm coming to you, because I need your input. You guys are going to be there, the ones who live. You are the ones who live there. You are the ones who work there. You play there. I play there too. But we need to make sure that what we're putting forth to the council is what the people of the village want in order to have a better livable, walkable, bikeable, green community.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Donna. Appreciate that question as well. Okay, if there are no other questions, let me go on. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the ECCL's Adopt a Highway program. Now, we've mentioned it in the past and talked about how successful it is, but I think it's worthwhile repeating because I have a number I think will blow you away. The ECCL adopted a highway, and that is both sides of Highway 41 between the Vines entrance, Breckenridge Road, north of Walmart, and south of Coconut Road. The purpose behind it is ensuring that our roads are free of litter. It's that simple, because it's going to benefit the community in many, many ways. It'll reduce, we believe, the inclination for others to discard litter when the roadways are clear of trash. It'll improve the area's overall appeal as well, encouraging a good feel factor, encouraging people to want to live in the area, and it indirectly improves home values. But here's a number. Volunteers picked up a total of 800 pounds of litter from that stretch of Highway 41. I think that's absolutely amazing to hear that. And the volunteers were people from the community that were around Route 41 and so on, went out there and did their thing. I know many of them that were out there. Really terrific, and a big thank you to everyone who volunteered, specifically Julie Yelig, who ran the program, who advocated for it early on, and those who worked so hard to pick up litter. If you are interested in supporting this and you'd like to contribute to keeping the roads clean, please contact Julie Yelig, and you can reach her via email at ecclhwy41@gmail.com, ecclhighway41@gmail.com for more details. So I just wanted to give them those kudos again. Really a terrific job, and it makes us all proud. I also wanted to just briefly talk about the ECCL's leadership work in developing strategies for the years 2021 and 2025. We've been very actively involved in doing that. And I have to give again Alan Bowditch credit for this. He was the chair of the committee that put this all together. And the plan is coming together. And we'll be closely working with it, what they've given us, share it with the board of directors, and it'll take us into the next 5 years or so. But stay tuned, keep your ears peeled, because it's going to be some major shifts that are going to take place in the ECCL, all for the better, to serve the needs of the greater Estero area and improve the quality of life that we all look for. So I wanted to just mention that was coming. So I'll turn it now back over to Mark Nowitzki, and Mark will talk about a few programs that are dear to his heart and what's happening in the advocacy councils. Mark?
Thanks, Jim. The Estero Art League is badly in need of additional space to do their drawing and painting and other things that they do. So we've collaborated with the Estero Historical Society, and they have offered up their deck patio area for the Estero Art League to have a peaceful, quiet, and adequately distant, social distance space to do their painting. So to me, that's a win-win. We're collaborating. The Veterans Recognition Pocket Park Survey, I don't know, in the last 10 days, we put out a survey that the Estero High School students in a graphic design class have designed 20 different designs, or 20 different students have put their designs out, and we put out in a survey. And today we've gotten over 500 responses. So we're working on just a little pocket park somewhere to recognize what the veterans have done and what they mean to the community. The survey ends the 13th of December, 2020. We're looking at grants to get it funded. Our biggest challenge is finding a piece of land to put this pocket park on. In the health environment, Lee Health Coconut Point is looking to offer private tours. If you're interested in seeing what facilities are at Lee Health Coconut Point, you can schedule an appointment and go see whatever you'd like to see. More info will be coming on that shortly. The Lee County Transportation Improvement Plan actually has an update that's going to be approved on December 18th next week on the Alico Corridor Extension. Now, that's not directly in Estero, but we're hoping it'll move some traffic off of Corkscrew Road. We asked for that about a year ago, and all of a sudden after the election, it got moved up by 5 years. So we feel like that's a little win. We are conversing with the Lee County Parks and Recreation on the Larry Kiker Preserve. We want access from Corkscrew Road. The plan should be out in the next 6 months to a year, and we're hoping to make sure we have access from Corkscrew Road rather than having to drive 20 miles down through Bonita and up through Terry Road and other places. And lastly, our next speaker is going to be our new Community and Economic Development Chair, Gary Bilian. Gary, glad to have you on the team. Thanks, Jim.
Right. Thanks, Mark. Are there any questions of Mark before we turn over to Gary? Anybody at all? Any thoughts? Okay. As Mark indicated, Gary Bunvision was recently appointed our Chair of Community and Economic Development Council. We're really pleased to have Gary working with us. He's doing significant work for the Chamber of Commerce, and we have been, over the last year or two, really trying to pull together a nice coalition between the ECCL and the Chamber. We both have very, very similar views, very similar goals as to what we'd like to do to make Estero a place where people want to come and, as they say, live, work, and play, to make it a destination area. And the way we're going to do that is a variety of different ways. So I'm going to turn it over to Gary, and he can tell us a little bit about what he's up to. Gary?
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you, Anna and Jodi, for a couple of things. One, when we look at economic development, one of the strongest cornerstones of it is quality of life. Everything that you spoke of will be important to the economic development effort that we have underway now. And I'm going to ask you if you would let me put both of you on our interview list, because we need to understand what you're doing a lot better and properly incorporate it into this economic development study. And I want to congratulate you on the language used today to express what you did, because I've lived in other parts of the country, some that really wouldn't even want to think about climate change. But for instance, Anna, the language that you used, anybody should be able to accept and be willing to work with as you look at this challenge. So thank you for doing that. And I look forward to not only advancing your causes, but properly incorporating it into what we do in economic development studies here for Estero. So very quickly, yes, I'm a volunteer with the Chamber of Commerce, and really goes back almost 1.5 years now, when I was asked to be part of a group, co-chair actually, doing a study on quality of life. And we did that study, and we were about to release it when the COVID hit us, and it all came to a sudden stop. However, what came out of that was more time to think about a broader effort of looking at economic development for Estero. Essentially, we don't have a central location in Estero now, a central body that focuses on economic development, although it's going on all around us. And every one of these agencies that we talk about, including the ECCL, the Village, the Chamber, FGCU, all of us are engaged in economic development activity. One of the efforts of this project that will unfold over the next 6 to 9 months is to bring that all together so that we're better leveraging all of that effort that is actually going on already in the name of economic development. And also to bring to the forefront some of the key factors, such as quality of life, which is probably #1 on most lists of what's important when examining economic development. Bring it to the forefront, make everybody aware of what's going on, what's on the horizon, and perhaps what we can do even better. Certainly, Estero is well positioned to do a project like this. And as such, I've been working with FGCU on a grant, a federal grant. It's an EDA grant. And one of the things that they fund is the development of a study to examine what you're doing in economic development, and also a planning document. And we have created a project that will be in 2 parts. First will be to capture all of this information of what is going on, such as what Anna and Jodi are doing, and many others in the name of economic development, to capture that, to analyze it, compare it to what other communities do successfully or not, and bring it together into a final analysis so that we can make good recommendations to the community. This will come out of FGCU and of course the Chamber of Commerce, but we have critical partners aligned with this project. ECCL is one of them. They're one of our partners and have endorsed the project. So has the Southwest Florida Regional Planning Council, the Lee County Economic Development Office, Career Source, the former Workforce Development Group. These are all partners in the project and have endorsed what we're trying to do. I'd like to tell you more about how we're progressing, but we are still a few days away from actually submitting the application. We are optimistic that we can get this grant because Estero's never done a project like this before, and we're primed for it. We meet all of the qualifications that the EDA would be interested in order to do this study. We will be reaching out in the community pretty ambitiously, talking to people about what is going on as we capture this information. One of my intents with the project all along, though, was to bring together what I've been saying quite candidly, disparate elements of economic development that goes on around here in Estero, but they're not brought together frequently enough and in a coalition way to actually leverage everybody's strengths. And that's one of the things I'd really like to see come out of this project. All of the major players, three of them are here today with Anna and Jodi's organizations and the ECCL. These are three important players when we talk about economic development. So that will come out of the project as well, we anticipate so. FGCU, Regional Economic Research Institute, a fantastic organization, is taking the lead by design because they have a lot of experience in doing this and a lot of clout in research. And then the chamber is the secondary principal to go after this funding to create this report. We anticipate it will take through next calendar year to complete, partly because even under best case scenario, we're told we probably won't even get an answer for about 4 months on the grant. That said, I know that FGCU and I will be starting the work immediately. We're not going to wait for the grant to arrive. We're going to start pulling together information, as mentioned, interviews, and creating the story even before the grant arrives. And I'm doing that primarily because I'd like to focus when the grant does arrive very specifically on the business community here in Estero. But in the meantime, we can do a lot of fact gathering from supporting groups, and you can expect that to unfold. I want to thank Jim and Mark for asking me to join the ECCL. I wasn't looking for another volunteer job, but I actually went back to the chamber and said, I really think this is essential. I really feel that in order to do this project correctly, you need somebody who can thread the work between the village offices, the government offices I'm speaking of, the chamber and ECCL, all three major players, of course, in economic development. And I'm happy to play that role of threading the three organizations together. So thank you for asking me to do that. Looking forward to the work. And frankly, as I told Jim, I've always been a big fan of ECCL. My wife said it to me last night again. She said, wow, I get a lot of communication from ECCL. I said, I know, they really educate us well on the community, don't they? So that's what's going on. Looking forward to working with all of you, and thanks for having me on board.
Thank you very much, Gary. We appreciate that. Any of the participants have any questions they'd like to ask Gary? Okay. Thank you very much again, Gary. Appreciate that. I'd like to just talk a little bit about ECCL Finances. We typically just mention a few points about it. Total revenue year to date exceeds our budget by about $2,800, and overall expenses were $2,300 under budget. So we're managing the dollars. The ECCL Advocacy Foundation is doing okay, could be doing better. We received about $755 in contributions in October, for now a total of $14,360. And you can find much more detail on our finances at esterotoday.com. So now I'd like to ask Alan Bowditch, our Chief Communications Officer, just to sort of update us on what's happening in communications. He's the guy that's sending Gary all those emails. And you can ask him questions there too. So Alan, go.
Yes, good morning, everyone. And Gary, good morning to you specifically. I am indeed extremely conscious, as we are on the ECCL, about the quantity of communications that we provide to, obviously, the greater Estero area and the residents here. However, it's not about quantity, it's about quality, of course. And that's a very critical aspect in, of course, our communications. And I've been working certainly with the rest of the committee and with other council members within the ECCL to make sure that anything that we do send out is engaging, is considered relevant and important to this aim that Jim mentioned a moment ago, which is a vision that we have within the ECCL to make the greater Estero area the best place to live, work and play. Interestingly, in the last few weeks, some of the communication pieces that you will have received have been very focused on two critical parts of what we do within the ECCL, and that is to focus on health and safety issues. Just in very quick summary, the ECCL's Health Council Cardiovascular Committee wrote an excellent summary about the importance of CPR and of course, getting an update on how you can help people in an emergency situation with that. The Greater Estero Community Report that we sent out in November focused on the risks of blue-green algae and its link to ALS and Alzheimer's disease. And the Lee Health operation also updated us on the implementation of a number of measures that they've made during the COVID situation and the provision of an observational unit which provides specialists care close to home and helps to reduce the circumstances where patients need to be transferred to other facilities. Those articles are all available on our website, Estero Today. One last point that I want to make is that coming up very shortly, we will be sending out an equally important communication about the importance of continuing to wear masks during this COVID situation. I won't elaborate too much on the piece, but it is so important. And in my communications with Kyle Coleman of the Village Council recently, he made some very important points. One was that 45% of the COVID cases that have occurred in Estero since March have occurred in the last 6 weeks. That's an amazing statistic and rather concerning, I think you'd agree. However, the Village Council does have some federal funds available. And he also mentioned that it is the village's intention to send out 50,000 masks to residents in Estero. And this will happen around Christmas time, possibly just after. And they also have plans to help local small businesses in providing both masks and hand sanitizers too. All of this information will be available in a to-do communicational piece, which will come out very shortly. So that's my update for you. And thank you very much for at least paying attention to what we do send out. I hope you continue to find everything of great interest.
Thanks very much, Alan. You're doing a great job. Appreciate that. Any questions for Alan from the participants? Okay. Next, I'd like to reintroduce our Chief Membership Development Officer, Barry Friedman. You may have some comments on membership, Barry.
Yeah, just a reminder, this is the time of the year when our treasurer will be sending out your annual renewal of your membership dues, whether you be a community or a business. As you noted from our revenue presentation, although it brief, we're in good shape. And one of the reasons we're in good shape is that we've increased membership a little with some new types of memberships last year. We're going to continue this membership drive into 2021. And we're pleased to announce that there will be no increase in membership dues for your community of business for the year 2021. Yet we would appreciate that when you get your bill, please pay it as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. Good thought. Any questions for Barry on membership? Okay, so let me say this. We really appreciate folks who take the time to join us at these monthly meetings. We know it's much more social to be in a personal meeting, but we all know that's impossible these days, and rightly so not to do that. But we're really happy that you guys are all and gals are here listening to us, and we know a lot of folks will go to the website and watch the recorded video. A special thanks to speakers Dr. Chevlin and Jodi Walborn, and all of you who participated and engaged in the meeting. Next month, if things go well, we expect to have Commissioner Kevin Ruane, who was the newly elected Lee County Commissioner and Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, to speak with us. We've spoken with Kevin and he's happy to do that. So January 8th, we can expect Kevin Ruane to join us. I think you'll find him a dynamic individual, very experienced, and a community advocate. So look forward to that. Finally, on behalf of the Board of Directors, the executive leadership team, and our council chairs, we wish all our members, our volunteers, local and county officials, residents and businesses of the greater Estero area a happy and safe holiday season and a significantly better new year. That's about it. Our next meeting is January 8th, 2021, and it's likely to be a Zoom meeting. And on that note, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for joining us. See you again.